Hi everyone, hope you're having a good day. So today, this is going to be your DBQ review video for May the 6th, and then your assignment will be posted. Since we're getting closer and closer to the exam date of May the 15th, I thought it's time for us to really start practicing our ability to write the DBQ under time constraints. And as Ms. Leeton said last week, I think that speed and time management is going to be the name of the game with this year's DBQ. You only have 45 minutes to plan out your DBQ, analyze your documents, get your essay written, and then they are going to give you 5 additional minutes at the end to get that uploaded. But that is still going to be quite a challenge to do that in a 45-minute time span. So I thought what I would do today is there's a DBQ here in front of you. From time period 6, and on Monday you did a content review of time period 6. The reason I wanted you to watch the AP Live review is that the teacher who did that review session really focused on the New South. And if Miss Leeton was like me, I won't speak for her, but at least in my class, I did not really focus on the New South as a term, as a content vocabulary term. And so I thought College Board really emphasized that. That teacher really emphasized that in that AP Live review. And so I wanted you guys to have that in your tool belt because we didn't cover it very well in class. So anyway, hope you watched that and did the notes on that. So the DBQ that we're going to look at in this video is here, and it says, evaluate the extent to which cultural and economic factors affected immigration patterns from 1880 to 1910. So with a DBQ, one of the first things that you do, which is what we've taught you all year long, is to determine what type of question is being asked. Okay, what historical thinking skills being tested here? Is it a continuity and change over time question? Is it a comparison question? Is it a causation question? And so one key here is this word right here, affected. So how did cultural and economic factors affect immigration patterns? So this question is a cause-effect question. It's asking you about the effects, okay, the economic and the cultural effects on immigration during that time period. All right, so before we even start looking at the documents, I want to go over here. And what I did is I just thought, okay, if I was writing the essay for this, how would I do it? Well, and all year long, we talked about those different graphic organizers that you use for each type of question. So since this is a causation question, I used this graphic organizer. And because the question, it broke it down for you. Cultural factors and economic factors, those are your two boxes there. Okay, what were the cultural factors that impacted immigration patterns? And what were the economic factors, okay, that impacted immigration patterns, okay? And so I'm going to use documents 1, 3, and 4 for cultural, and I'm going to use documents 2 and 5 for economic. And in the box here, this is kind of working on my thesis statement here. We're going to talk about, this is going to be new immigration. We're going to talk about, you know, the rise of industrial cities in the north, however, agriculture being predominant in the south, and how anti-immigrant sentiment is going to be a backlash there and is going to affect immigration patterns. And so once I have this done, okay, you know, I know this is the graphic organizer that I'm going to use. Okay, before I got to back up just a minute. Before you know that's going to be what you're going to use. If I put culture, the first thing I did is put cultural here and economic here, and then I go back and I look at my documents. Okay, so and you'll have time. I don't want to take too much time in this video because you're going to have access to the DBQ. But the first document is talking about from the viewpoint of a Chinese immigrant, and talking about the restrictions on Chinese immigration that took place in 1882 and were still prevalent, the Chinese Exclusion Act. And so this goes with my cultural in my cultural box of anti-immigration sentiment. Okay. Document number 2 talks about the need for cheap labor and how new immigration is providing that cheap labor. So I'm going to put that in my economic box. Document 3 is the American Protective Association, and so that goes in my cultural box because they were anti-immigrant. Document 4 is Booker T. Washington, a famous speech of his about casting down your bucket where you are. And in other words, he encourages agriculture to keep with the former slaves. And so we're going to put that in our economic. Oh, wait, did I put that? I'm sorry, document 4, we're going to keep that in our cultural box. I'll explain that here in just a minute. And then document 5 in our economic box. Okay. All right. So once I have analyzed those documents and put them where I think they belong, okay, I'll go ahead and write my thesis statement. Okay. And so my thesis statement, I said, although economic factors such as the rise of industrialization and the need for cheap labor drew immigrants to the industrial cities in the North, cultural factors such as anti-foreign sentiment kept many Americans from embracing those new immigrants, and the continued dominance of agriculture in the economy of the New South maintained a known labor force through tenant farming and sharecropping systems. So, you know, a lot of these documents, for instance, okay, I could put document 4, I might could put it in either category, economic or cultural, and that's kind of the thing with a lot of these documents. They might fit just about anywhere depending on how you use them. All right, then once I have my thesis statement written, I would go back and do my pre-context. Remember, pre-context goes before your thesis statement. And this is going to be easy to do when you're typing this on the exam, because you can just, you know, you could write your thesis statement, go back and put your pre-context up here. But I said prior to 1880, most immigrants to the United States were from areas of Europe that were culturally similar to America. They were primarily from Northern and Western Europe. Remember that acronym WASP, White, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. They were skilled and literate. They were Protestant. They came with some money in their pockets and were quick to assimilate. As the United States ended the bloody Civil War in 1865 and the Compromise of 1877 officially ended military reconstruction in the South, new industries exploded in America, bringing with it the demand for new labor. This demand for new labor saw a new wave of immigrants at the turn of the century. Okay, so that's my pre-context, and then I have my thesis statement. Okay. Then I'm going to take that thesis statement, and those become, okay, my topic sentences. Okay. So topic sentence for body paragraphs. So topic sentence number 1, the rise of industrialization in the North brought about new demand for cheap labor, which brought a new wave of immigrants. Okay. And again, we're talking about the economics. Okay. And so I'm going to use documents 2 and 5 on economics there. And I'm going to use those in the body of my paragraph, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And remember, when you use the documents, you use that acronym SICK, where you're going to summarize the document, you're going to illustrate how it supports this claim, which your claim is your topic sentence, and then you're going to cap the document, and then you're going to move on to the next document. So I would do that for document 2, and then I would do that for document 5. So if we go back to the documents, document 2, okay, in here it talks about the Italians and the Slavs coming over, not in families, but kind of as single men to gain, you know, to get employment, to make money, and then they go back home. Okay. And so that's an immigration pattern, right? Okay. They're going to come because of those new industrial jobs in the North. Those factory owners need cheap labor, and they're going to come and be that cheap labor, establish some money in their pocket, and then go back home. And that's kind of what this document is talking about. So that supports what we said over here. The rise of industrialization in the North brought about new demand for cheap labor, which brought a wave of new immigrants And so you can use document 2. Then if we go down to document 5, okay, which is this political cartoon, I would focus on like this part of the cartoon: 1 million immigrants come to the U.S. in 12 months. This contractor, he gives me cheap labor. So you don't have to use all of these parts of the political cartoon. I would just focus on these two. Even this part, he is the brawn and the muscle for my country, and use that to support what I said here, that the rise of industrialization in the North brings this demand for cheap labor. Okay, so I'm going to stick both of those documents, and then I'm going to move on to my next body paragraph, which topic sentence number 2, which goes back, it just comes from straight from the thesis statement. New immigration patterns caused a rise in anti-foreign sentiment, and the continued dominance of agriculture in the South kept new immigrants primarily in the industrial northern cities and out of the New South, because we know the immigrants didn't go to the South to work. So we're going to use document number 1, because this is a Chinese immigrant talking about anti-Chinese sentiment, and you could use a great piece of context for capping this is going to be the Chinese Exclusion Act. I would definitely use that as context when I'm capping this document, okay? But this supports my claim that there was this anti-immigrant sentiment. And they're talking about funding for the plaque on the Statue of Liberty, and he's like, doesn't really apply to us because Chinese don't get to come. All right, then so I would stick document 1. Document 3 is the secret oath of the American Protective Association, and very anti-Catholic, and supports my statement about anti-foreign sentiment, and that goes along with the new immigration. Go back and look at new versus old immigration. And then last but not least, document 4, Booker T. Washington, where he says, to those of the white race who look to the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongue and habits for the prosperity of the South, where I permitted, I will repeat to what I say to my own race, cast down your bucket where you are. In other words, you Southern people with the money and looking to hire people, hire the people that are already right here in the South and know who to do those jobs. And who are those people? Those are the former slaves that already know, they're going to be loyal, they're going to work, who they are. Don't go with those untrustworthy, immigrants. Cast down your bucket where you are. Hire African Americans here in the South. And then you could go into great context there, or you could use it for pieces of outside information. It's going to be tenant farming, sharecropping that we know took place and continued and was the primary jobs of blacks in the South. So that's how I would break up that DBQ and try to do it within the time constraints there. And then obviously I would want to put in 2 pieces of outside information. And like I said, I might talk about sharecropping, tenant farming, or Jim Crow laws, or continued, segregation in the South during this time frame. I might want to talk about internal migration patterns, like the Great Migration that's going to take place with African Americans leaving the South and going to the North for industrial jobs. So whatever those are, remember, with pieces of outside information, you have to stick that piece of outside information just like you would a document. So if I'm going to talk about sharecropping as my piece of outside information, I have to summarize, I have to explain, I have to define what sharecropping is, and then explain how it supports, my topic sentence there. Okay, so make sure you're doing that with your outside information. All right, I hope this video was helpful, and we'll see you guys next week.